None shall stand in my way. It's about time. I won't tolerate weakness.
You have my complete attention. The cult's ordinary members are humans who have been corrupted by the archenemy, traitors to the Imperium, and accomplices of chaos. Participation in the cult's rituals always entails brainwashing, literally and figuratively. The longer cult members spend among other cultists, the less critically they think, and the more closely they resemble obedient livestock, stripped of their fear and instinct for self-preservation. The worst of them go to their deaths without an inkling of doubt, ready to take hundreds and thousands of souls with them. As for those at the top of the cult's hierarchy, we have not yet managed to get a lead on all of the cult's leaders. I imagine that some of them are hiding in the depths of the Coronis Expanse. But those who are orchestrating the fanatics on nearby worlds are hiding very well indeed, or receiving protection from above. Governors, commanders, rogue traders. History is full of those who neglect their duty to the Golden Throne and seek allies in the wrong places. I need to confirm the reports from my agents. According to them, one of the cult's leaders is in the Kiava Gamma segment, an industrial world within the dominion of the Von Valancius dynasty. I hope you won't impede my investigation. We discovered the first traces of it as soon as we arrived in the Coronis Expanse. Since then, the more we learn, the better we see just how far the roots of this blight extend. Destroying individual cells is pointless. We must cut this beast off at its head. As you wish.
You bet I do, Lord Captain. Okay, so we went to Footfall once. Well, I mean, Lord Captain Theodora went to Footfall a lot. But on that occasion, she took me with her for some reason. My day had gotten off to a bad start. My head had been yammering since I woke up, but there was nothing else for it. I had to go. We arrived at the place. And what a place! All the gentlemen and ladies dressed to kill, showing off their encrusted implants, all clustered around little tables. Well, turned out it was a gaming den. And not just any gaming den, but one run by somebody with deep pockets for people with just as much cash to splash. You should have seen it. People gambling away planets in a game of regicide. Anyway, so the Lord Captain wanted me to help her beat some guy. So I tell her, the chips won't land in your favor. You'll get a bad hand. Don't sit down at that table, your ladyship. But did she listen? Of course she didn't. If there's one thing she never lacked, it's stubbornness. So they sat down and the cards were dealt. I'm hovering around like I'm not involved, but I'm keeping my eye on things. And everything in my head keeps getting louder and louder. Anyway, it's a good thing I realized in time that my mind wasn't going haywire over a losing hand, but something else. I made some excuse to drag the Lord Captain up from the table and took her away from that place. And a few minutes later, the room where we'd been... It turned out some wise guy had the same bright idea to bring a pet psyker along with him. One of those ones who just scuttle around in Footfall's underbelly. And the psyker just freaked out, I guess. After all the commotion, people went to see what happened in the room. And they'd all gone for each other's throats. Literally. With teeth. And I think they completely detached that asteroid from Footfall and pushed it off into open space so it would head off toward the local star. Of course. Always at your service. Whenever you need me.
Domin. Torture? I bear the sacred marks of the Undying One's service. Death has bestowed them upon me. Though others may cherish hollow riches or meaningless beauty, it is my duty to cherish his gift of blood. Each wound is a symbol of our service to him. Each drop of blood carries his blessing. To renounce these scars is to renounce the Undying One himself. Death whispers to me, "You are worthy of bearing his marks." Tell me, Domin, do you wish to honor your flesh with his gifts? I have not felt pain in a long time. But yes, your body will certainly suffer. Embrace the pain and make it a part of you. It will be your salvation, even on your darkest days. Let it be so. Treasure his gift, Domin. Inscribe it anew each time you pray. May his blessing find you. The Gothic we use to communicate is different to that spoken on the upper decks. Domin has many meanings. Giver of life, Lord or Lady of the Ark, and Shadowless Sun. The matriarch Spider gave this title to the rogue trader who allowed her to form the blood-spun web. We use other titles as well. For example, Venai means Master of the Immaterium, or Watcher of the Veil. Vil means one who must go to the other side. Amic means one you can trust in battle. Lords and wretches are equal before death. If such is the Undying One's will, I will guide you to him, Domin. I met her once when I was young. The Vizier saw a serpent hiding among those close to Domin Theodora, ready to sink its fangs into her throat. I was ordered to find the serpent and sever the soul from its body. I watched and waited for weeks. I hid among the shadows, the air ducts and the faceless masses. Once I found the serpent, I sliced off its head and returned to the temple. I doubt that Domin Theodora ever saw me. But the 3 ritual cuts I left behind on the body let her know that this death was pleasing to him. They sent us a grand feast from the upper decks before the cycle's end. We gave it to the hungry. I use blood to read his sacred cards and hear the whisper of the Undying One. His tarot is not an answer, but a question I ask of the universe. And the universe answers with questions of its own. In this sacred communion, I perceive hundreds of possible outcomes. They are all true, and yet they are only visions. I know what will come to pass, and yet I do not. I am the spear of his retribution, not a witch or a sorcerer or a soothsayer. I have no strange powers, but I do bear his blessing. I do not command the veil. I am guided by his whisper and led by my faith, by the tenets. Please, do not mistake me for something I am not. It is a holy relic that has been passed down from generation to generation. Only the first and second spinners are allowed to study the sacred cards and interpret their meaning. We use his tarot to guide the cult and discern the tangled threads of fate. 34. There used to be more, but some have perished in the darkness of time. Their loss is a great tragedy for the blood-spun web. Ask the cards, Domin, and I will listen. The first card is the young warrior. It suggests inexperience, a path of becoming. The second card is the shattered world inverted. The path will have twists, turns, and thorns, but you will gather allies along the way and find what was lost. The third, the hound inverted. Someone has marked you as their prey and is chasing you through a field of traps. The lost child. You will leap into one of those traps of your own free will and place your trust in someone truly desperate. You wish to discuss this again? The past should remain where it belongs. What you call mysterious is merely the difference between the worlds we each inhabit. You have stepped into my labyrinth, and I have become your shadow. And yet, we have no understanding of one another, or of each other's customs and rituals. I cannot imagine that you were able to comprehend what transpired on the officer's deck in its full depth. I would not be against learning more about your world, seeing your rituals, Domin. Should you be open to showing them to me? It is not difficult to speak the truth. May the Undying One shroud your footsteps from the faithless.
Rogue Trader, your timing is impeccable. I am ready to discuss the fascinating experiment we have been conducting in the Sector Bionica, and on other decks. Indeed. After processing all the data, including your invaluable contribution to the outcome of the experiment, my dear colleague and I engaged in a lengthy debate. My cognitive block has been resolved at last. I have come to the conclusion that the only correct decision in the context of this experiment was not to conduct it in the first place. My methods were correct and my intentions good, but I clung to my hypothesis to the last, in blind defiance of Nuncius's arguments and objective reality. I was attempting to wring usefulness out of people like charge from a dying battery. But regardless of how well and long a battery served before, when it is finally depleted, isn't the more rational response to dispose of it and replace it with a new one? Righteousness is a trait of these people, but it is not their primary function. I see that now. We have managed to reach a consensus on the root of the problem. The rest can be overlooked. He is not convinced by all my conclusions, but that is no terrible thing. He and I share a common path, but we each have our own methods of comprehending it. As you instructed, he is being tended to in the Sector Bionica. His cognitive functions have almost entirely failed, and only the Omnissiah's mercy keeps him from losing all mobility. The Trias Somata spends his days bowed in prayer, or so we presume, since he has lost all verbal capacity. He appears to be at peace. Precisely. A man chooses what he is made of. Regrets for his past mistakes, or the experience he gained from them. Only those who choose the latter course can attain true wisdom. I wish to thank you. You helped me cope with a situation that was beyond my control, and to recognize my mistakes. And that is worth a great deal. I was considering using this implant in an experiment, but I thought it too valuable to waste on the laity. Please, accept it as a gift. To think that all tech priests speak exclusively like machines is a widespread misconception among the laity. We may strive to draw closer to the machine god, but we remain part of the human race. How exactly a tech priest achieves this oneness is the choice of each individual ordained in the priesthood of Mars, depending largely on personal characteristics, practical considerations, and interpretations of the tenets of the faith. Of course, many attune their language to machine cant, or even prefer not to use flesh speak at all. It is then easier for them to make contact with machine spirits. For myself, however, a key aspect of the machine god is his omniscience. I gather wisdom, and that includes from communicating with laypersons. To this end, standard low Gothic has so far proved to be the most useful. However, this does not negate the fact that I am able to speak all the binaric dialects of Mars, if circumstances so demand. But can anyone truly know the essence of another person? For a veil of words often shrouds meaning that cannot be discovered in one brief conversation. Then again, all the greatest works on human nature began with scant material. Ask your questions, Rogue Trader. Stygies 8 is a forge world located on one of the moons of a gas giant in the binary star system of Vulcanus. A magnificent place. Stretching from horizon to horizon, mighty manufactorums crisscross the moon's surface, producing armaments and equipment. For the armies of the Segmentum Solar, the designs and patterns we produce are unequaled in the galaxy. The huge titans of the Legio Honorum tower over cohorts of Skitarii, making ready to escort countless expeditions, ravenous for knowledge and lost technology. And beneath them, deep within the moon itself, lies a labyrinth of archives and laboratories, where many sages cultivate knowledge and conduct experiments in the name of understanding the will of the machine god. Nuncius and I spent our adolescence and part of our adulthood there before we were permitted to leave our cells for the cabins of expedition ships and the tents of field camps. I miss my home, but I do not regret leaving it, for stagnation is the enemy of knowledge. No, not all. The robes of tech priests often vary from world to world. They are imbued with symbolism that reflects the principles of a particular branch of the tech priesthood. Red is the color of Mars. It is present in the robes of each world as an homage to the Red Planet. White symbolizes the purity of machines and sacred augmetics. One is compelled to carry a certain stigma living on Stygies 8. Certain theological disputes often lead to conflict with our fellow clergy. Black symbolizes our guardedness and otherness, while with red we emphasize the purity of our faith in the Omnissiah and our fellowship with the rest of the cult Mechanicus. The kind of bickering about interpretation of ancient dogma that is bound to arise in any place where two tech priests cross paths. A layperson who tries to fathom these arguments will gain nothing but a headache. I have dedicated my life to many questions. The blessings of the fusion of organics and machines, the search for virtue in their separate existence, the possibility of prolonging the functioning of flesh through genetics and alchemy. The machine god is perfect in all his manifestations. This is the truth and an incontrovertible fact. But it seems to me that attempts to become like him exclusively through augmetics, though good in their righteousness, do not fully reflect his design. For the organic body is nothing but a biological machine, whose components can be replaced and improved by genetic transmutation. I believe the truth lies somewhere between these two paths, and both lead to my ultimate goal, my magnum opus, to challenge death itself as a phenomenon, bringing humanity closer to the eternity of the Omnissiah. I may not look it, but I am a wanderer and a pilgrim. Nuncius and I have led research expeditions with the aim of finding relics and artifacts and advancing the quest for knowledge. I have also endeavored to learn from my colleagues at every opportunity, developing my expertise in genetics, hermetics, and augmetics. We have visited more than one world, voyaged on more than one ship, and got our hands dirty more than once, both literally and figuratively. Many secrets lie within that blessed temple fortress. I spent decades there, but still I am not certain that I discovered all of them. However, the station's clergy are not known for their insularity for nothing. They are quite reluctant to make contact with the laity, or even other tech priests. Nuncius and I were lucky that our skills were in demand, and we were able to ensconce ourselves in that fountain of wisdom. Alas, the doctrine of isolation and the intransigence of several colleagues had brought my research to a standstill, and so I seized the opportunity to join your retinue. The Omnissiah's providence did not bring us together. The temple is quite vast, and it is no surprise that two learned men never once crossed paths. After all, each of us is blessed with our own function, and fulfilling that function is a solitary effort. Really? My dearest colleague states that Magos Haneman and I once passed each other in Service Conduit 91-R. The esteemed Magos chided me for some minor neglect in the presentation of my augments, after which, having each voiced our opinions, we parted ways. It seems I considered this event to be inconsequential, and it has escaped my memory. As has mine. Questions can reveal more about the asker than anything they may say about themselves. I can only encourage such a thirst for knowledge. Ask away. A difficult question, and thus an interesting one. From the perspective of the cult Mechanicus, augmentation is an unalloyed good. Flesh is weak, and replacing it brings us closer to the Omnissiah. But this good is also a supreme privilege. Every augmetic is a man-made miracle that glorifies the machine god, and not every layperson is worthy of such a blessing. The majority of laypersons who have lost limbs or organs are at best furnished with the most rudimentary prosthetics, if any at all. The exceptions are those who hold key posts in the Imperium, or who cannot perform their duties without replacing their organics with more efficient equivalents. And naturally, there are exceptional individuals, such as rogue traders, who can afford the best augments at the wave of their hand. Or rather, it's lost. Just think about it. You are one of untold billions, and you succeeded in becoming a statistical improbability. How could one perceive anything in these metaphysical mathematics but the design of the machine god? I have a great many of them, and most possess rather esoteric functions that are difficult to explain to a layperson. The most obvious is the galvanic cell. My hull is quite heavy, so it is supported by a gravitic core, mechadendrites, of course, an alembic with an alchemical synthesizer, auxiliary cogitators, an eye with magnifiers and analyzers, a respiratory... My dearest colleague suggests that my answer is becoming tiresome. If you are curious, I would be pleased to attempt to compose a treatise on my construction. But the more difficult task will be to give it a form comprehensible to a layperson. If my physiognomy offends you, there is no need to hide it behind feigned interest. However, I will answer on the hypothesis that your question is sincere. My face looks as it does because that is how I prefer it. A Vox grill is practical, but there is something about speaking my thoughts aloud via an organic vocal apparatus. Consider it my little extravagance. Besides, appearances are deceiving. My internals have been extensively augmented, and I am fully fluent in lingua technis and binaric. My dearest colleague amply meets all other communication needs. With a suitable source of motive force to redistribute, I could light up the lumens of an entire deck, Rogue Trader. However, I do hope that is not the only application you will find for my talents. My dearest colleague is incredibly flattered by the attention. Please, ask your questions. Are you truly asking me if I have violated one of the Omnissiah's core commandments as blithely as if you were asking to borrow my stylus? No. 1,000 times no. How could such a thing even be wrought from a single servo skull? A wicked mind of that caliber would require a receptacle of significant cogitational potential. I am deeply outraged by this insinuation, and simultaneously flattered by your assessment of my skills. My dearest colleague asks me to convey that he does not share my strong emotions, and humbly apologizes for this outburst. He also swears before the machine god that he was created according to all the canons of sacred engineering, and that he is not a sacrilegious perversion of his design. He is my dearest colleague and indispensable assistant. A superb question. It is quite difficult to explain to a layperson, but I will try. To put it quite crudely, Nuncius helps me to think. He constitutes an exceptionally complex network of algorithms that augment my own. They contain conflicting points of view that seek out flaws in my reasoning, and information that is more useful to me if it is not kept in my own head. So I delegate it to him. He is wholly unique. We have shared a cell since our novitiate on Styges 8. 138 planetary cycles and 72 days have elapsed since then. It may not be accurate in a temporal sense, but you could say we have been together my whole life. I will take it upon myself to interpret his words, but I beg your pardon in advance for falling far short of my dearest colleague in terms of rhetorical elegance. Yes. Your presumption is incorrect. Nuncius is really rather chatty, and holds strong views on every conceivable topic, which he does not hesitate to express at the first opportunity. Alas, you, as a layperson, are unable to hear his fiery declarations and witty remarks. Nuncius categorizes this fact as regrettable. Yes, Nuncius, I will relay it verbatim. He says that I possess a remarkable mind and excellent practical skills, but my excitability, especially combined with my stubbornness to the point of ossification, would have stunted my development were it not for his thoughtful advice and fair criticism. He also adds that the thought of working with anyone other than me evokes repulsion and outrage in him. The value coefficient of our relationship is extremely high in his catalogue. That cannot be right. That often? Yes, Nuncius, I would be obliged if you would assist in monitoring my vocabulary. But watch that superior tone of yours, please. Nuncius, what an appalling thing to say. Our partnership is perfectly equal. Keep your mischief-making to yourself, and don't mislead the Rogue Trader. Nuncius states that this conversation has stimulated and enriched him. Nuncius says that he will leave a channel for inquiries about his biography and personal qualities open for you, Rogue Trader. The rank of janitor grants me the right to study their foul anatomy and behavior for the purposes of identifying their weaknesses. I have personally dissected more than one specimen, and have even preserved specific body parts for further investigation. I research and study their technology to the same end. There is no shame in using our enemies' weapons against them, no matter what some narrow-minded colleagues may say. I appreciate your restraint, rogue trader. In my experience, such words directed at me do not constitute a question, but an accusation. I will not attempt to convince you of my righteousness, but I will articulate a few facts that you can use as a basis for your own conclusions. Fact 1. My interest in Xenos is easily mistaken for a proclivity. It is not. I find them no more appealing than I would a cadaver being vivisected to ascertain what sickness ended its existence. They are objects that I study in order to answer a simple question. How can they be destroyed most effectively? Fact 2. Certain species of Xenos exhibit technological proficiency. Their weapons and artifacts possess destructive and utilitarian properties that could elevate the power of the Imperium. In studying these properties, I find ways to translate them to the technologies bestowed upon us by the Machine God. No wicked deed of innovation is committed. I liken this research to the creation of new production patterns. Fact 3, the last. My research is directed solely toward advancing the quest for knowledge and strengthening the Imperium. Though a certain boldness may be inherent to my work, I do observe the dogmas and follow the righteous algorithms of the cult Mechanicus. Here ends the presentation on my position. The mythical kind, shall we say. The subject of my research is an ancient, unusually advanced xeno-civilization. Some among the tech clergy call them Niflimics, believing them to be the first creations of the Omnissiah. Others call them iron anathemas, considering them to be the spawn of abominable intelligence. But the initiated know them as Necrons, and believe me, the hand of the Machine God has never touched these monstrous creatures. After more than 1 decade of searching, I have amassed a modest collection of objects that belonged to these Necrons. But I have never succeeded in understanding the purpose of most of them. Many believe that Necrons died out long ago, leaving behind only ruins of black rock. But I do not believe so. They exist still, and they are closer than they seem. I have encountered inconsistencies in my research. Ghost colonies with fresh tracks that match the descriptions of these Xenos from various sources. Adeptus Mechanicus expeditions that plunged into obsidian ruins, never to return. Gaps in the knowledge repositories of individual worlds, as if someone had been trying to hide information. In isolation, all these are unexplained coincidences. But if I analyze the cumulative frequency of the events and the systems in which they occurred, and compare them to the few things I do know, I can detect certain patterns. The ancient Xenos are exhibiting activity. An interesting question. I will answer it with another. Would I be able to tell a layperson of such an encounter without breaking my vows to the cult Mechanicus? This question does not require an answer, just food for thought. That's the beauty of it. I don't know. Allow me to specify. It includes objects of mostly regular forms, cubes, spheres, cylinders, made of unknown black stone or metal. Many are covered in glyphs or patterns that cannot be deciphered. Fascinating trinkets that I have spent years studying, but have never progressed beyond flimsy theories that cannot be confirmed experimentally. Perhaps my approach is fundamentally flawed, or the objects are non-functional. Or perhaps they simply do not want anyone to root out their secrets. It's a mystery. A stimulating mystery. I look forward to seeing what new topic of discussion you propose. Splendid! It has been a long time since I last had a worthy opponent. Not including my dearest colleague, of course. So, to the topic. I have never understood why some thinkers present this question as something profound, when the answer is utterly trivial. The meaning of life is determined by a person's position in the hierarchy of the Imperium, and where he or she is deployed. But ultimately, what it comes down to is supporting the functioning of the system. The worker produces or processes a resource. The soldier destroys enemies. The governor ensures order and the shipment of tithes. The meaning of my life is to advance the quest for knowledge, thus fulfilling the function granted to me by the Omnissiah. As I said, an utterly unoriginal question. My dearest colleague has accused me of oversimplifying matters. He believes that in trying to convey my point of view, I neglected many of the nuances you set forth in the question, and thus gave a trite answer myself. But he considers the general premise to be correct, albeit riddled with holes. Absolutely. You may perceive that as a cynical view, but I am merely cutting away all that is superfluous. Humans are not simple creatures. I could regale you for hours with the nuances of the structure of the body and consciousness, and cite theosophical and philosophical musings, but it makes no difference. As long as a person fulfills their function, their life has meaning. You are the quintessence of the will of the Imperium. Your purpose in life is to expand it and strengthen its power where other subjects cannot reach. You do not explore the frontier. You are the frontier. Brilliant! You have grasped the very crux of the matter and articulated it with concision. Nuncius, make note of the rogue trader's phrasing, and I will add it to my catalogue of arguments. Am I right in thinking that we have reached a consensus? So, as you see it, I am confusing cause and effect. Faith, as the supreme directive, grants meaning to our every action. The Omnissiah knows all, comprehends all, and we make it the meaning of our lives to emulate him. I am impressed by your arguments. They have given me fertile ground for reflection. I thank you for the interesting discussion, rogue trader. I find our conversation stimulating, and I will look forward to your next visit.
Words cannot describe how boring the bridge is without our stimulating conversations. Not here. I'm begging you. Aren't noblemen supposed to discuss such things away from the servants? Then, Lead the way, and I will answer all of your questions.
Annihilate them! The time has come! Lay in the course! Unleash your vengeful salvo! The time has come! Lay in the course! Annihilate them! The time has come! locked? The time has come.
Your vessel's hull is exposed.
Another salvo! Fire right now! Unleash your vengeful salvo! Set the course!
There is a gap in their defenses.
Annihilate them! Onward! Unleash our vengeful salvo! The time has come! Fire the lance batteries! Set the course. Macro cannons, volley! Leave their hulls strewn across the stars. Bleed them! Onward! Set the course!
None shall stand against the Imperium's fury.
This one's going down. Unleash your vengeful salvo! Fire right now! Smite the enemies of humanity! Lay in the course!